Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are glad you are here, and just by showing up, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to present two guys who are experts at developing artists, helping them grow their brands, and expand their careers. I promise you will leave here today smarter and more enlightened than you arrived. Before we get started, please let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones, and ask questions of our speakers. Also, this is very important. Please make sure your chat is set to address everyone, not just the host and speakers. I want to thank our program sponsors, for without their support, we could not continue to do this for free. Special thanks to MedJet, Turnkey ZRG, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Tennessee Brew Works, and my favorite industry podcast, Unlimited Supply. By the way, a note about MedJet, since we got a lot of craziness going on in the world right now. MedJet is the top-rated air medical transport and security response membership program for travelers. I'm a member, and I will say I got because if I am away from home and I land in a hospital somewhere, MedJet will get me home. It's very important given what's going on in the world right now, the cartel violence in Puerto Vallarta and everything going on in the Middle East. So you just never know. MedJet, you ought to check it out, folks. Let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome Zebb Luster. Fort Myers, Florida native Zebb marked 10 years in a 10-year town in 2025, and he's just getting started. After graduating from Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College in 2012 and a brief stint as a sales director for Altria in South Georgia, Zebb made the move to Nashville in 2015. Hitting the ground running with an entrepreneurial mindset, he co-founded Why Not, a motivational lifestyle and apparel brand with deep ties to rural and agricultural communities. With his passion for music, he then expanded the brand to develop Why Not Wednesdays, a weekly concert series that has grown into one of Nashville's most beloved songwriter rounds, running 7+ years. In 2017, he joined Riverhouse Artists as publishing coordinator and the company's first ever hire, working his way through positions as creative director, vice president, GM, where he oversaw the company's label, publishing, and artist development divisions, and his current role as executive vice president of Riverhouse. Zebb's contributions have earned him recognition as a Billboard Country Power Player 22 through 25, a Billboard Indie Power Player also 22 through 25, and a 2023 Nashville Briefing Power Player. He is a voting member of the ACM, CMA, and AIMP Nashville. Zebb, welcome. It is an honor to have you.
Thank you for having me.
And joining Zebb is Brian Popowitz. Brian is GM at Black Box, a modern music marketing agency that develops, grows, and breaks artists through digital branding, strategy, and partnerships. He began his career in music while completing a self-designed BA in Music Industry and Society at the University of Maryland. Working up from internships, street team work, and DJing, Brian eventually established himself as a digital marketing guru at a number of major and independent labels, including Geffen Universal, Drive-Thru Records, and Network. In 2011, he became the director of digital marketing at Warner Brothers Records, where he met Black Box founder and CEO Livia Tortella. It is my pleasure to welcome these two rock stars to our platform today. Please take it away, boys.
Thanks, Tom. That was fun. I think Zebb, I'm looking at you and seeing smartest people in the room, and I'm like, how did we end up here? This is
Yeah,
this is
that's
a first
exactly
for
what
us.
I was thinking. You
Yeah,
don't
are we in the
realize how
right
much,
Zoom?
you don't realize how much you've done until someone reads it back to you like that, you know?
Exactly. I learned a little something about you, and I hope to learn more in this conversation. So I'm seeing a different background for you than I usually do. You want to tell us where you are?
Yeah, so I'm in London right now. This is day 5, I think, in London. And before that, this past weekend, I was in Germany. So I actually came out here on a trip with my mom for C2C. Neither one of us have ever traveled over here, so we made a vacation out of it, but we're also here for work. So we had Matt Lang, who's an artist that I work with from Quebec, who was playing in Germany. And then this weekend, Tice Delk, who we work with, is going to be playing in London. So we've did a little bit of everything, explore and hear live music and get to meet people who I haven't met yet. So it's been really fun.
And was bringing your mom the right or wrong decision at this point? And if she's
It was
watching,
Yeah, she's watching, so we can't really answer
okay,
that. No, I'm kidding. It's been really good. We've got to travel a lot and see. I think we've seen every site there is to see in London in the last 4 days. So we've got our steps in.
that's good. That's great. All
Um,
right. Well, this is gonna be, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to have you talk a little. I know you just got back from Nashville. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you do?
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
travel communities, companies, and those type of things.
Yeah. So I just got back from Nashville. Maybe give a little context as to like what I was there, what my objective is, and that will kind of give a foundation for Black Box because we're not a conventional record label or management company or publisher. And then I was thinking one of the things that's unique about Black Box is our pursuit of extracting the narrative of an artist in helping them with artist development at whatever stage of career they're in. And we do this thing called an onboarding, which is really like getting to know the artist. And I was thinking it'd be fun for us to kind of onboard each other. But yeah, I was in Nashville for the last 3 days, met with a bunch of amazing people, and I think Nashville for us is really important. Black Box was founded in LA. Um, 10 years ago. But at the time, I think, the obvious satellite office is New York. And we said very intentionally, it's got to be Nashville. It's a place where the music industry is coming, not just because country was rising or continues to rise. And at that point, it was still very much the radio country that was of a pastime. But it's a storyteller's, market. And uh, since we've built an infrastructure there of digital marketers, project managers, content creators, and we just have the most wonderful clients there, River House included. And so I spent the last 3 days talking with people, understanding their needs, understanding their pain points, some of which were our existing clients, and spending some face time with them, which never goes out of fashion in this world where I'm almost always on Zoom versus in person. And the other side of it is, to talk to other great companies and understand how we can support them. And that's really at the ethos of Black Box, this democratized service where you can have an ex-label president in Livia, myself to far less acclaim and our team, really ask the question of an artist, like, how do you define success? And then be motivated to support that, not be motivated just to support where the economics lie, like streaming, for example. So, yeah, had a lovely day until yesterday where it started pouring and thought I might get stuck there, but I got my way out and the food just gets better, coffee gets better, people get nicer. It's a lovely place.
It's great. Well, yeah, I love the idea of onboarding. I've been on a few of those with you, probably more than we can count at this point. So just going through and talking a little bit, I think that to me is like an important part of where I see things. I think I had a sales background and an agriculture background in my past, and so I feel like I always say that I try to look at music and try to look at the artist through a fan lens, like what I did before I became in the a person in the music business, and I think that that is important. So yeah, however you want to
Yeah.
kick that off.
So I mean that's it. I'll give a little color here and then I'd love to hit you with some questions. So as Tom mentioned, I had spent my career at record labels and had such a good fortune of learning and experiencing so much. And you learn everything there. I owe it all to my various experiences. But the one thing I always longed for was that opportunity of really figuring out the authenticity of an artist. And I know that's overused and it's a bit of a buzzword, but the truth is, as marketers, you want to be powered with what is their story, not somebody else's. And so for Black Box, we came up with this very simplistic idea. Before we start anything, we need to figure out what we call the verticals of the artist. And the verticals are the themes and commonalities that make them who they are, just based on their story, not anyone else's. And we try to organize it in such a way that there's their personality that's well defined, their uh, identity, their lifestyle, so that they're not all things to everyone, but they're uniquely themselves. And that to us has been that kind of aha moment of what guides all of our action. And so before we do anything, we take a few hours in this instance. I don't think we're going to make it that far, but we'll take a few hours and we'll talk and we'll ask about their origin story. And through it, we pluck those big topics and say, okay, cool. This is the construction of your identity that's wholly yours and nobody else's. Now let's relentlessly tell that story so that the point of discovery might be the music, but the ability to become a fan is in connection with the artist. And we want to try to create that connection built on the most authentic and unique parts about an artist. So what I'm thinking is, Zeb, I'm going to start asking you some questions and you can bounce it back. If I get lucky, I'm going to try to figure out what your verticals are, what your, themes and commonalities are, so we can kind of build the story arc around you. And I think it'd be a fun little exercise for anyone who kind of cares about this stuff. Um, so with that, oftentimes as broad as it is, we ask for those earliest memories, like where you were born, what your childhood was like, and the influences between now and where you are in your seat that made you who you are. So in maybe a truncated fashion, I'd love to hear that because I don't think I've ever, gotten that story from you as long as we've known each other.
Yeah, so I grew up, Tom said a little bit of this, but I grew up in Fort Myers, Florida. My family is very agriculture leaning. I mean, I grew up around animals. All I wanted to do as a kid was go to school to be a vet. Like, that's what I thought I wanted to do. I showed animals at the county fair every year. My earliest memories of concerts, I would say, are probably around that situation. They had 2 weekends within the county fair every year, and there was concerts on the weekends there. I really listened to mostly country music growing up. I feel like that is because of my mom mostly, but definitely loved all country music. I remember like I had a little CD player, I think in middle school or maybe early high school, and one of my first non-country CDs was Country Grammar by Nelly. But that was really, how I fell in love with music. I think I always loved music. I just never understood that, like, I didn't associate work and music in the same thing. I didn't realize there was a whole career around it. So once I graduated high school, I wanted to get as far away from my hometown as possible. I knew I had big dreams in my mind. Those dreams were going to work in the ag industry. I tried to be a vet the first year of school, but funny that I'm on the Smartest Man in the Room podcast because I wasn't smart enough to pass organic chemistry. And I realized really quickly that I should probably change directions. I had an advisor in college who was like, "You talk way better than you do math and than you do being a student. So you should definitely try to do something different." So I just pivoted and went straight into the sales role. And I was like, I can sell vet medicine for a living or some kind of sales and make great money. That's what I want to do. I got really involved in college. I've always been that type of person that, like, if I'm in it 110%. So all the clubs, all the organizations, I was in a fraternity. We launched fraternities at our college. I was a part of that group. And then I became the founding president for the first 2 terms of the fraternity. I've always been a big relationships person. I feel like you can learn a lot from people in the room with you. And so I kind of did that through college. I still have a lot of really good friends from that. And during that time, there was one music venue and bar in that college town, and it was called The Gin, and then turned into Terminal South, and they had music there every weekend. And I would go there with my friends, mostly to partake in alcohol, but secondly, to listen to live music. And I think that I just started to realize, like, wait, Georgia in general breeds musicians. Like, there's so many songwriters. There's nothing to do in this town, so they just sit in a room with a guitar and play music. And I gravitated towards those type of people. I just loved creative people in general, and so from that, I just really jumped in and started to help them without even knowing I was helping them. Like, hey, I can help you book a show, or, I can drive to this venue and you can ride with me and I'll watch you play. And so I just became a helper in all aspects of that. And my roommate in college was a graphic design guy who I convinced to start a business with me to make flyers for these artists. And then from there, he did all the work and I did all the talking. So that didn't last very long. And from that, I just kind of figured it out, right? And I knew that I loved music and I loved the passion for music, but I knew music didn't pay the bills. So when I graduated college, I took a job with Marlboro in Copenhagen to pay the bills. It kept me in South Georgia. I did nothing but sell cigarettes for a living for 3 years. Funny enough, like the last thing I sold in for the company was a little thing called Jewel, and no one wanted to buy it at the time. And so I sold it all into all these stores. And then I went away and moved to Nashville for a year. And I came back a year later in the college town. Everyone was smoking a Juul. And I was like, holy crap, that's crazy. So, anyways, long story short, whether that was good or bad, that job really taught me analytics in the moment. Like you in tobacco sales, you have to look at all the numbers, like what's selling, what's moving, like trends, how do you convince someone in South Georgia, most of these store owners didn't even speak English, so convincing them to buy more product from you when they can't even understand simple math in our world, really. So it was a lot of challenging things that I didn't love at the time, but I think it taught me how to be a music person and look at trends and numbers and streaming. And even if you only have a little bit of traction, you know where to lean in and how to grow those things. So I did that
Yeah.
for 3 years while still being a helper for everyone. And I had a few really good friends, Ray Fulcher, Farron Rachels, who are both great songwriters in Nashville, who convinced me to move to Nashville and try to work in the business. So I moved with the help of my mom. I got a job at Comcast. She was working there at the time and saw some openings. I sold cable for the first year that I was there and knocked doors selling cable, helped every musician I could find, started a songwriter round, and just trying to meet people like this platform where you can meet people and see what they have to offer and try to get a job. And I applied for many, many publishing jobs and I didn't have experience, so I didn't really get a job. And Lynn Oliver Klein, who owns River House, was signing Luke Combs, and I had a connection there because of Ray. Ray and I were friends, and he was writing all the Luke Combs songs with him at the time. And so I had Luke playing one of my rounds, and Lynn had showed up, and I just kind of put myself in places that I knew Lynn was going to be, as creepy as that sounds. It was like, hey, I really want to learn from this lady and work for her, so I'm going to put myself where she's at and see if I can't talk to her more about it. And she was gracious enough to hire me as a coordinator. And I came in and she told me she needed help for the next 90 days to prove what I could do. And I came in and did that. And um, I've been there ever since. So,
Unbelievable. So we have a question from Tom asking if you can explain 10-year town.
yeah, so I think 10-year town is really just saying a lot of times it's used with artists. Like it takes them 10 years to figure out who they are and develop who they are and find the music. And in my mind, like an artist in development, it starts with the songs first. I feel like the music has to be there and the brand has to be there. People have to be able to connect with them and on many different levels. And a lot of times people just say it takes 10 years to really build the network that you need to be successful in Nashville, whether that's other artists, a record label team, the artists to figure out their traction, their songwriters, who they can help make the music with that will then give them success. In my case, 10 years just meant it took me 10 years to figure out what I was good at. And a lot of times I think people tell you, chase your dreams. But what we realize is like sometimes you have to chase your talents to really
Yeah.
get there. Because I think that, in my mind, I wanted to be a manager when I moved to town, but I had no clue what management meant. I loved music, I loved songs, and I was good at organizing things and reading analytics. And so that took me to the publishing world first. I was able to book calendars and really help find creative rights and things that could be successful on that side. I loved listening to new songwriters and new artists, and so that helped me find new talent for our company. And then from there, I realized like I wanted to not only find them, but make sure that they were taken care of through the process. And so it took me 10 years to really figure that out. And I think that that is like a perfect example of what a 10-year town is.
Yeah, you know what? I think that the expression should expand beyond 10 years at this point, but I think there's a great parallel to that in artist development, and that is, 10 years of hard work, persistence, pulling your hair out, wanting to quit will make you look like an overnight success. And I think that couldn't be more true, for music these days. And it's an important reminder that I think, you and I probably in our own ways tell our artists. It's such a marathon, and it's often clouded by this idea that virality yields success, the grass was always greener, looking over your shoulder on both sides and seeing your friends accelerating, you feeling stuck. And there's very few examples that I can point to where it just happened overnight and it was sustained and it was real and it actually kind of turned out to be that success that you thought it would be. So I relate to that a lot. The other thing I would say, I think you brought up, and is a good point of emphasis, is that that illusion that chasing your dreams is really the right thing. I think like so many people are misguided by the implausibility of that. Whereas when you chase your talents, you can find out, how to use your talents to support a dream that you might not have known you had, which I think is another really good takeaway. And I
Well,
don't know,
and that is, sorry to
yeah,
cut you off, Brian, but I was going to say, like, you have to love this industry, right? Like, what we're doing, you're doing it all the time. I'm in London right now. We spent half the day today. I was on the phone with coworkers and clients, making sure that they were taken care of and things were happening. Like, you have to love what you do because you're doing it all the time. But also, I think going back to the artist and the 10-year town story, it's like, I think it works for artists who have no plan B, who really are willing to give it all they got and to look internally, right? And be like, is the songs not good enough? Is the music not good enough? Do I not have a clear enough brand? Like, am I truly being authentically me? Like, those are all the things. Like, you can't live in a fairy tale land and it work. But at the same time, like, if you look within hard enough, I think Lainey Wilson is a great example of like, she was in this town year after year after year, playing every round you could possibly go to. Lainey Wilson was there. She figured out her brand with the bell bottoms and the hat and the whole thing. And then she had the songs because she'd been working on them and it just all connected at the same time.
yeah.
And but that was because it took a lot of self-reflecting and a lot of like hard work and never giving up. I think all those things connect on both the artist side and the industry side. I think it's really important to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success in the company you're in, the place you are. Like there's always something you can do, even if it's not your actual role in the job, that can help you learn and grow. And so I know we are supposed to be asking about
No,
our
no, but it's important. I mean, this is obviously a conversation, and I think that point is so clear about the plan B. I think like a prerequisite to success, and I think this is transferable to artists, but also young professionals, emerging executives, et cetera, is there is no plan B. And I think what comes with having no plan B is of focus and urgency, but it is the absolute confidence in yourself. And there's been plenty of artists I think that's crossed your desk and mine that and it's okay, there's no judgment to it, but like they don't have the stamina, they don't want it enough. And in a world where there can only be a 1% in everyone else, you have to do everything right just to get lucky. And I think that it requires all of that. And we often try to weed out where we focus our time by trying to get a sense from the artist, whether they're nowhere but we see a vision, or they're established, are you going to cap out because it just takes everything in them. Going back to your story, I thought one cool thing about it was hearing these like themes of entrepreneurialism, a focus and a kind of value around relationships and knowing that that can move the needle for you, probably a confidence. And then the one thing that I really relate to is being a helper, like that person who doesn't ask to, apply to a job to get the opportunity, but just jumps in, solves problems, has the ambition to do it. And I see it in your day to day now, even at an executive level, where you're not asking for anything back. You're putting your help out there and you're getting it in return in whatever way it comes. Where did these traits come from? Is that innately you? Is that the family you grew up in? Did you have, role models in your life that gave you advice that you looked up to?
Yeah, I think it truly came from my parents and my family in general. I think everyone that I was surrounded by was a hard worker, like coming up in a family who understands agriculture and also just works. My dad had a construction company growing up, and I mean, it was like do or die. He was running that company to take care of our family, right? And also, I think my parents really pushed us to go to work early on. As soon as I could drive, I had a job. I mean, honestly, before I could drive, I was riding the four-wheeler down the road to work for a neighbor to make money. So I think that really instilled like work ethic in what I'm doing and everything I do. That I think that's truly where it comes from. Uh-oh, I can't hear you,
Oh,
Brian.
shoot, I'm sorry. Were there other formative moments in your upbringing that kind of contribute to you being you, be it good or bad experiences?
Um, I don't honestly, I don't know right off the top of my head. I would say, like I told you, like I literally lived in like cycles of raising animals to show at the fair and like
Yeah.
being involved in everything in school every year. So I think that it was just like a constant state of like, what's next? How do I get there? Like I'm completing a project every year, even as a kid, and my parents were pretty strict about making sure we did those things and it wasn't, them doing it for us. And I think that has really, really helped.
Was it scary getting to college and realizing like you can't live up to that dream that you've always had?
Yeah, I mean, I think college was a real eye-opening experience for me. One, it was freedom. It was like, oh, I can stay out as late as I want to do. I can do all these things. I can also really push the limits and see how well I am as a talker to pass this class. I mean, I wasn't a great student. I mean, I was a good student because the teachers loved me, but at the same time, like I wasn't an A plus student. Like I think I graduated college with like a 2.8, right? So it was like just enough to get by. So it was definitely an eye-opening experience that taught me how to survive in the moment, which I think I still use to this day. The music business is a moving target. So we're constantly figuring out, okay, I might not understand TikTok or what's happening, but I'm going to figure out how to adapt to it.
Sure. Well, I'm starting to get the complexion together. I've got some ideas for your verticals. I'm gonna have to probably workshop it to the end to present to you.
Well,
Uh,
before we jump into that, do you want to share a little bit about I feel like I've been
yeah.
talking about my story. Like, how did you get into music and give a little detail there?
So I've got a different story as everyone does. And by the way, just antidote. We've probably done a few hundred onboardings at Black Box over the decade. What I think is so cool about artists is that everybody has their own story. And so while I think as an industry we're fixated on like oh, this person went viral doing this, what if we did our own version of that? Or what works, what doesn't work. It is so cool that every artist has their own story to tell. And I will, use this as the basis of marketing forever. If you kind of lean into your story and tell it, it's going to work. You just have to do it relentlessly. So, anyways, my story. So. I'll start kind of with the idea of, okay, well, how did I get here? What did I want to be when I grew up? So in similar fashion, let's take it elementary school, and you go around in the circle, and everyone shares what they want to be when they grow up, and it's a fireman, a lawyer, whatever it is. I distinctly remember basically saying something to the effect of, I want to be Leor Cohen, I want to be Clive Davis, Tommy Mottola. And I kind of asked myself, well, why? And I knew at a very, very, very early age that I loved music. And I loved all different types of music. Growing up, late 80s, early 90s, alternative rock was amazing. But I loved everything about music. I also knew I had absolutely zero interest in picking up a guitar, singing, being on stage, and being on that side of it. It didn't attract me at all. And I also have this distinct memory of watching television. I think it was Tommy Mottola on the news with Mariah Carey at the time, who he had married in a big mansion in LA, and I'd never seen anything like it. And not to be superficial, but I just thought, like, what is this guy's life like? I think at that point you have a sense of celebrity from the other side, the actors and the musicians, but what does a guy behind the scenes do? And I was romanticized by that. So I had this very unique indication that I wanted to run a major label. And as we go through my story, it certainly refines itself to, no, I want to help artists. And the trade-off of running a major label is something I'm not willing to pursue if I were ever to be so lucky to do so. Um, and for whatever reason, I think mostly luck, maybe good people around me that helped give guidance. I think I exercise those principles that help me kind of pursue this. And so some of that is basically the music industry rewards relationships and experience. So go get that. And growing up outside of DC on the East Coast, it wasn't like I was in New York or LA, but I had enough fortitude and know-how to start to try to make relationships. And there was a good family friend who worked for the RIAA and others that started to help me connect the dots. The other thing is, okay, well, what kind of experience can you get at a young age in the music industry? And this predates, the bulk of the digital era. And the first thing I thought of was DJing. Kids had parties all the time. I could DJ. And it sounds silly, but like to me, that was such an important part of how I became who I am. With DJing, there's a few things that come with it. First of which is, okay, cool. You're now a entrepreneur. I did it with a friend, so I wasn't a solopreneur, but I had a partner. And so, how do you establish partnership? How do you establish your role? How do you show up on time? How do you market your services? But I think the bigger part of it was like, how does music make people feel, react, change? Like just as you said, reading the room and understanding people. I know that I wasn't consciously consuming it, but I think I left that experience knowing the impact of music. And I think as a marketer, and especially a digital marketer, that helped me so much. When the party was not feeling good, you kind of knew what song to play. When it was about making sure that the host felt, supported and rewarded, yeah, you can pivot to that. Also, talking with adults and having the confidence to be able to do that as a kid in middle school, high school. So that was as trivial as it sounds, I think a really formative aspect of my pursuit for the music industry. Um, to kind of connect to your story, that idea of being a helper, I think, was something that also was an aspect of my story. And I think part of it was just the selfish desire that if I can open a door, I'm going to run through it, close it, and never look back. And the best way to do that was just to get started and be a helper. So there was this important record label at the time called Drive Thru Records, and they really gave birth to the pop punk era that then became very commercialized and I think had a big impact on pop music. I think it's a path to the Fall Out Boys of the world. But that label was incredibly influential and awesome, and I looked for opportunities to help. So I became kind of a street team rep or coordinator and would, hand out posters and, try to know the bands and the managers and so forth. And nonetheless, I pursue an internship and I'm invited out to LA to intern there. And I remember with my limited experience on the street team thinking like, this is not as efficient as it could be. Like I could run it better. And there was someone that was paid to run it. And with my stupid immaturity and confidence, after interning every day, I would kind of plot my takeover of the street team and the college reps. And in doing so, I remember very distinctly going to Staples and getting this like uh presentation bound, like I was like some sort of like buttoned up, pop punk kid or whatever. But I remember going to the GM and saying, effectively, the street team's being ran poorly. I can do it better. You should fire the guy who's doing it and let me do it. And they said yes. And so that was that idea that the door opened. I'm going to close it. I'm never going to look back. And it was also this recognition that like all these seats are coveted. Like 10 other people want that. And like how lucky are you to have this experience to be able to do music, to work and impact the lives of fans and artists and so forth. So I start in college, getting my, I guess, first kind of real gig in the music industry. And I took it with great seriousness. The opportunity of running a street team is how do you manage people remotely? So basically, I had to build college reps all over the US and then expanded it into all the international territories. How do you communicate clearly with a singular objective that, works, that like, actually moves the needle? How do you then incentivize people? Like, I'm not paying them, so what's the reward? How do you do that? And it was an incredible learning lesson, but it was also this time where MySpace was becoming that medium that can help achieve that. And that was a turning point for me. I had always been interested to some extent in digital, but when social media became, this tool that was thought of to help support artists in their development, it went a little bit beyond, okay, cool. I hung up a poster at the coffee shop in the record store. And that was like, okay, this is it for me. And I think that's where the refinement of I want to be Leor Cohen to I want to help an artist and a fan build a business and connect became so special to me. So, as you kind of know within the principles of building a career within the music industry, all you have is basically your reputation and your relationships and your work ethic. And through a friend, I was connected with someone at Geffen who said, "Hey, those street teams you're building, can you build a few others on our side?" And started to do that. Got the major label experience, which taught me how to dream big. Coming from an indie label where a lot of things were not possible, taught me all the things I also didn't like, and those were equally valuable. And ultimately, I took a job at Network Music Group, great mid-sized company that had a label, management company, I think also publishing. And I met some great mentors there who taught me an incredible amount. And I think I was honestly just lucky to be told that I was put on the accelerated path and had to kind of live up to that. And in doing so, started at a position that was relatively entry level and matured into someone who was taking on the leadership role of digital marketing there. And that was, MySpace into that era of not just Facebook, but every other social media company that was going to change the world, iMeme and Bebo and iLike and all these ridiculous things. Um, and I think at some point there, I also had this foresight to recognize that when you start to feel comfortable, that's often an indicator to kind of change, to do something new. And comfort was a bit of the enemy, as much as that's counterintuitive to how we want to feel as humans. And through some mutual relationships, I get connected with Livia Tortella, who I'm being told is leaving Atlantic Records as general manager to be the co-president of Warner Brothers Records. And I remember thinking about my major label experience, helping with street teams, and thinking, it's probably not for me. But doing a little bit of research at Warner Brothers at the time and thinking like, okay, their biggest band is still Linkin Park. Like this is a broken company to some extent at that era of their time. Um, that's uncomfortable. Like, what a great time to go into an infrastructure like this and see what I can learn, change, do. And if I lose, I win, and if I win, I win just by putting myself in that position. And so I joined Livia at Warner Brothers to help lead a digital team. And it was there that I think, as broken as certain things were, you meet incredible people and great ambition, and your access to all different relationships really allow you to culminate into the characteristics of someone that felt like they had the confidence to do this, to really help artists. And with a shared alignment from Livia, who subsequently left Warner Brothers to start Black Box, I was able to take these experiences and bring them to Black Box, where we've been doing this for 10 years. And so, anyways, I'm blabbering at this point on kind of the professional journey, but the sum of it is I started in a place where I had absolute clarity as to what I wanted to do. It refined itself a bit, and I do find that unique, and it's not something that I say as a point of pride. I really, when I talk with our interns and our staff, recognize that not everyone has that level of clarity, but to be goal oriented and then to make every intentional step to get there has been kind of the gift that I've tried to take advantage of. And it's landed me in a chair where I feel like, with all respect to every opportunity that I've had, I'm in a position to help artists in a way that's completely uncompromised, hard, challenging, an absolute pain in the ass, but it's a joy, and that's me today.
And there was a few parallels in your story. By the way, I haven't heard that whole story, so thanks for sharing that. But like a few parallels, right? Like when you're talking about going to work and them giving you the opportunity to run the street teams, like you have pride in that, right? And like for me, when Lynn hired me, I was so prideful to be a small part of Luke Combs's team, right? Like it's this indie label and publishing company that she's launching. Luke was having success with Hurricane, and when I say success, it was like 1 million on-demand streams or something like that
Sure.
happening out the gate, which was huge at that time. And I feel like it kind of puts some weight on your shoulders in a sense of like, you don't want to mess this up because you know that like reputation and everything is so important. And that's kind of what drove me. Was that it was like, okay, she's giving me this chance. She's made it very clear that it's not a forever chance if I don't show up. So I have
Yeah.
to show up every day. And like when I walked into there to that office, she was starting the publishing side for Ray and Rob Williford, and she had saved all of their songs for the last 11 months on a hard drive, and she was just like, she was like, here you go. She was like, go figure out how to organize these songs. We have to start pitching them. I had no clue what to do in that moment, right? So I'm like, who do I know? Who did I meet at like an event in town that might know this? And I remember reaching out to Emily Craig now, who is married to Adam Craig. She works at another publishing company in Nashville, but she was working at Sony at the front desk at the time. And I was like, what does Sony Publishing use to organize their songs? And just leaning on my friends and asking questions. And I remember that was a very pivotal moment for me of like, oh, you just got to figure this out. Like, you can't say no, just take the opportunity and figure it out. And now that I'm where I'm at, I've realized that 90% of this business is just figuring it out in the moment while being honest and transparent and a person of integrity with the artist and the team that you're working with. I think that that's the most important part. If they feel like they can trust you, and Lynn used to always tell me, if you don't know the answer, just tell them you don't know the answer and you'll come back
Yeah.
with an answer. And that's something that I feel like a lot of people should learn in the moment, especially younger people in the business. Is like, how do you, like, you don't have to know everything out the gate. Like, you can just be honest and say, someone gave me an opportunity and I'm like trying to make the best of it. I don't know this answer. Let me go figure it out and come back to you.
Like I couldn't align closer to all those things. I think you like to extract some of it. For one, pride. Um, I think that like a little bit of a bite and an ego in the music industry is okay and very natural. I think my point of pride was often this like undue confidence around like, no, I could beat that ad vendor's like numbers. I could get more likes on this post. And I think like there was pride in it. There's also the recognition that there is ego, and I think that a balance can be very important, not ego in a way that is unproductive. I think the other part of like I would call it like fake it till you make it, figure it out. If you don't have that, I don't know how you do it. There's not a manual in the music industry. I always joke like, okay, if you want to do a trade, become a plumber, and 10 years from now, you're going to know how to fix a toilet better than like the first day you did it. In the music industry, what I know today, principles are important, but what happens on the internet the next day or how to break an artist, it's almost irrelevant. Like you have to figure it out perpetually. And so like a signing or a hiring philosophy at Black Box is often hire people, not positions. And you hire people that can figure it out. And to be honest, with AI, I don't know how you don't have that kind of confidence in being able to do anything in the world because your tool shelf of knowledge is a tap away. And then I think that the be honest thing is a unique characteristic in the music industry. And I think there's so much power in telling someone in vulnerability, I don't know, but I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna ask somebody. And then to follow through on that is the character that makes you someone that's relied on. And I think those are definitely principles that I align with.
Yeah, and the other thing is like, don't get me wrong, I'm very aggressive sometimes, and I'm also very competitive. We laugh in the office, like I don't think no is in my vocabulary when we're trying to do something. It's like, okay, well, we can't do that, so how can we do it this way? Or if we're trying to sign a writer or something that they might be interested in another company, like I will do everything I can, show up at their doorstep, like with gifts. I'll go talk about it, like anything I can do to try to prove that we are the right fit. Because I do believe the way you believe. I feel like we've had a lot of turnover in the past within a company, as most music places do, because a lot of people don't have the characteristics that we're speaking about, and they just think that music is cool and they want to work in it, and they don't understand how much work it actually takes. But that's something that I feel like we finally have the right people in place that are willing to go above and beyond and try and find those things. And I think that like surrounding yourself with a team like that really makes you work harder for them and for each other and for the clients. And so I feel like I've been at River House for I think almost 9 years. However, I feel like we're just getting started because, as you were saying, and one of your things is like when you get comfortable, you want to try to do something different. And that's exactly what has happened for me. It was like I came in as a publisher, then I found a lot of young artists that I thought were really talented, and Lynn gave me the ability and to like go work with them and see what we could do. And there was a lot of them that I believed in my soul had everything they needed to do to make it happen, and the stars just didn't align. and I hate that for them because I become friends with them as well through the process. But there is a few that have really worked, and though that one that works every year for you, I think fuels you. Like it gives you the high that you get off of that makes you want to go find five more
Oh
and
yeah.
help them improve that they can do it. And luckily, we've had the ability to have more than one, and a couple now. So it's like really inspiring us to grow. And I think then from that, I did the artist development stuff. And then from there, now I kind of force myself into becoming a manager because like you were saying, I just hold everyone to such a high standard of being honest and being transparent that once you invest in these artists and you tell them, Hudson Westbrook's a great example for me. I flew to Texas. I met with him and his mom, and I told him if he worked with us, I would do everything I could do to prove that we can make it happen. And I did exactly that. I didn't want him to work with someone else that was not going to keep up that promise. And so we tried it and we changed things, and now he's on our management side of things too. And it's been very challenging for me in some sense to learn like how to navigate, as a young artist, what he can handle every day. Like I'm a machine sometimes and I want to knock all these things out, but they're creatives and they need time to breathe and understand those things. So finding that balance with him and being able to communicate and with our team on what's just enough and what's too much for him to handle, and that's every artist is different, right? They all are different in their own ways, and those are things as managers I didn't think about, and I've been learning those things through the process. But it's always a different challenge in every role, and I think like it I'm just thankful that I have the ability to oversee our publishing team with an incredible publishing company, and the ladies that run that are incredible. Also have a management team now of day-to-day people who are crushing it, and as well oversee the development label and the label in general that we have, because we have a great team there who is dialed in on digital with your team, and Lance who's running our GM stuff. I just feel like our team is really, I couldn't do it without the team, but also
Yeah.
I've learned this every step of the way by being in the trenches with them. And I think that's what it takes to be a true leader.
Yeah, I think any sustained long-term success is often, that idea that there are multiple owners to it. And I mean, I see it in you and your team as humble as you're being, because you exercise such an opportunity to push the success to this furthest possibility, but you don't do it alone, and you acknowledge it, you recognize it, and the success is because you don't do it alone. And I think Angela in the chat said something about it, I don't know equals trust, and I agree. And I think like a unique quality of yours, and it's well emphasized with Hudson, is trust. That is a standard that you have, that you set and you do. And I think those who are able to deliver that in the music industry, which is hard work. It is, a level of loyalty. It is, no smoke and mirrors. It's not taking advantage of somebody. It is not the magic bullet that just happens overnight. That's something that I think defines your success. The other thing I would just say is like, hearing your story, it's funny to me to think about you not even realizing like, of course you're a manager. Like, like your kind of interest as a helper from day one. Your kind of ability to talk to people, relationships being of value. That's you're cut from a particular cloth. I look at myself and I also have like the clear acknowledgement to know that's never going to be me. Like I at least I've learned that through the process, and I know that. And I just think it's cool to see it play out almost accidentally and out of necessity, because it's led by like your desire to help people and doing it by any means necessary. Last thing I'll say, and I think this is a great transition as you brought up Hudson into talking a little bit about artist development, but I want to also say that uh, you brought up like the joy of it. From my own experience, I don't think, and I've never had other versions of this with drugs and alcohol, but like I don't think there's a better high than the ability to help an artist, to see that rise, to see that journey. I think there's few people that have had the good fortune of seeing the artist on top and win the Grammys. And I think when you ask them, like, is it everything that you hoped it felt like? I think some of them say yes, some of them say no, but truly, and it sounds corny, but the prize is the rise. It's the high fives when you go from 1,000 fans to 10,000 fans. The like, oh my God, it's working. I got an email back. This person called and wants to, work on a record with this artist. And it is a little like self-service serving. I want that high. I'm competitive like you. It's the joy of it. And seeing others, be rewarded in the joy more outward facingly, like the artist, is even better. So, anyways, I wanted to point that up. And at Black Box, we have this quote. It's still fresh, not jaded, and it's this idea that like we remind ourselves like every day we wake up with the opportunity of changing an artist's life, and you have to come with that energy. Your team has to believe that. Culture is built around that because it's true. And while it's a grind until it isn't, actually it's always a grind with different challenges, different problems. You can wake up, you can have an idea, you hit the same upload button as Bruno Mars hits, and you can reach people, and with that power becomes this like grin of opportunity that I think, anyone working in the music industry should acknowledge. And to feel jaded because it is such a hard process is, something that you need to be reminded of, that it's actually just such an opportunity. Um, how about you want to talk artist development? I think that, if we want to use
Yeah,
the rest of our time for that, I think that would be
sure.
a good thing. So maybe as a starting point, you brought up Hudson. I think he's such a shining star of really fast artist development. I think that artist development also is a misnomer or synonym for things that it isn't. I'd be curious to know, like, how would you define what artist development is in 2026?
Oh, I feel like artist development is truly connecting the dots on all platforms. I talked about this a little bit, but I think it starts with the music and the artist first and foremost. Like they have to understand who they are. They have to have a different approach. I think one thing we see with the internet these days and how TikTok, the rise of TikTok and all of that is everyone sees Zach Bryan and then practice singing like Zach Bryan. And now you have 35 young males on the internet who are singing like Zach Bryan, and if you closed your eyes and listened, you couldn't really tell the difference. And I think like true artist development is finding an artist that you feel like has a lane, right? Who has set themselves up to be a little bit different than everyone else and truly lean into that and give them the confidence. Sometimes you're right, like the high is the rise. And I think you just have to encourage them to be like, okay, post this video and let's see if you can get 10,000 views. And from
Mhm.
that, how do we take those 10,000 views and turn those into followers and then turn those followers into people who are buying your merch and buying tickets? And then from there, how did those followers who are now buying tickets tell their friends about you? And I think that like that is like the true connection and like a great point to say like this is how we work together. Brian and that team really helps us connect at River House on that. And oftentimes Brian is the person I call to ask if I'm being crazy or if I'm harassing the label too much about these things. Whenever now that Hudson is a larger artist and has a major label partner, we're constantly doing the same thing to make sure that we're still connecting those dots, whether it is 5 fans, 500 fans, or 50,000 fans. I think they all really matter. And I think you have to remember that those fans are the only way to sell tickets. So you're going to have to make them love you so much that they tell someone else about you. And artist development is truly that. I think it starts with the song. They have to love the song enough to tell somebody or play it in a car with someone else or send it via Spotify or however that's happening now. However they share music. And I think then you have to capture that fan's info enough to be able to continue to feed them. And like someone said this, Brian, it might have been you, but someone told me that artists and the relationship with their fan is a lot like having dinner at a table. So like you and I are sitting here having dinner. If I'm a fan of you as an artist, you have to continue to feed me and keep my attention so that I'm not paying attention to everyone who's walking behind me. And that is truly the internet, right? I think that is how it works. It's like if you're not doing enough for your fans, they're going to catch attention of someone walking behind you or someone at the table beside you and lose complete interest of what you're doing. And so our goal as artist development team is to feed the fans that they have one by one enough content, enough live shows, enough music, enough info about that artist that they can continue to stay attached and paying attention to them. And then hopefully that they grow and grow and grow fans. And and it doesn't always work, but I feel like we are constantly saying you have to feed the beast every day. Post the devil's in the details is written on the wall in our office. And it's like the details of everything we do have to connect. And it's so, our team has gotten so good at like making sure we're running ads for every tour, even if it's only $50 or $100, and making sure that we're capturing those fans info that are showing up to the shows. Hudson does a set.live liner before every show that's like, hey, it's Hudson. Thank you for being in Dallas. If you're not on my text list, text me tonight and I'm going to respond to some of the fans. And he does respond, and we as a team respond, and we have responses from him and selfies and things that we can share. And there's so much that goes into it from a small level, but you have to build that narrative from the ground up. And that's what we do. And I think we do it better than anyone in town. And that's me being confident about it. But we've learned from a lot of experiences, positive and negative. And I think that, we just get in the trenches with them and start with helping them find the music and then connecting the dots everywhere else.
Yeah, well said. And I can't take credit for the feeding analogy. I don't think that was me, but I subscribe to it. And for what it's worth, not that anyone needs to know this, but I see all that you're saying in practice, and I think it's rare, particularly with fast rising artists like Hudson. You see often, it become a song versus a love for the artist, and it's very hard to see it as quickly as it's become generate itself, represent itself as like a career business, an artist business. Usually that's made over a number of songs, and sure, he's had success, but I think you walk down the street and there's plenty of other artists that people will know off the bat, and he's getting there. And I think part of why he's so ahead of his curve is there's no wavering of that commitment to the fans. So like at this point, there's an addressable audience, there's a business to be had, money to be made. And the reason why I think it doesn't slow down is because if you can get three more fans to care, you put in the effort. And I use Hudson as an example. I don't know if I've embellished this, but I remember early when he was using like mobile, I think it was like community. I got a text from him as someone on his group, and it was like at night. So I'm like, what artist sends a promotional text at night? And it was like a like a selfie photo of him, and it was just like a you up. And I'm like, wait a second, like, where's the call to action? What are you trying to sell me? And it was like, no, no, he's using it right. He cares about the fans. He's playing with them. He's, using it as if it's a one-to-one conversation. And I think like what a testament to a team that fosters that type of thinking, supports that, does that. Yeah, it speaks to kind of your definition of artist development. And there's a little cheating, but I was hoping this question would come up, so I wrote down my own, and I think that, or my own answer, and I think it's similar in that I wrote, my definition of artist development is a conscious intention to take. I wrote an extended period of time, but whatever it takes to build fans of an artist, not of a song, and across a few different avenues. That could be tour, social, etc. I think there's instances where an artist is totally stacked on one platform, but they may or may not be there for the music, and they can't build it elsewhere. They have a song that's popping, but they can't sell tickets. They have a fan base, but they've never really launched any type of merch. And I think whether that's a collection of people doing it or the artist and their friend, that conscious intention of taking the time that it requires to build fans is the definition. Whereas the short-sightedness and misguidance I think a lot of artists see is that if they get something to pop and a song moves, success just naturally writes itself after. And that's where the shortcuts, come about.
Well, and Sean said something here in the chat that I think is important, talking about a lot of artists ask for fans to be there when they need help selling something, or I see a lot of fans trying to raise money to make records, and I understand how important and how expensive it is, but I think you have to build that relationship. Like the you up thing is hilarious because one of our most engaged texts with Hudson, I think, was a photo of him and his mom at the beach, and it was like, who's more tan, right?
Yeah.
And like him just doing things, and that was his idea. He sent it to me and was like, hey, we're at the beach, but can you send this out, and this is what I wanted to say. And I think that that is important to build community with your fans. Like we don't want to help people unless we know who they are, and that's me as a fan, not me as an industry person. And it's important to build that before you ask for things. I think it was Connor Smith, maybe this example came from, but I use it all the time, is like, he had a group me for his fans. Do you know this story? He
No.
would get his fans. He couldn't afford community or whatever it might have been, but it was really early on in his career. He created a group me on group me app and had his fans add it, and he would text them every day. And he had a couple hundred fans in there or whatever. It was like a big group me page. Well, Thomas Rhett, he was signed to Big Machine at this time. He had no traction happening. And Thomas Rhett had posted that he was going on tour. And Connor asked his fans to go comment on Thomas Rhett's
Yeah.
post and say, you should take Connor Smith. And like 150 of those fans went and commented on there. And so Thomas Rhett went back to his manager and asked who Connor Smith was.
Yeah.
Because of that, he got on that tour. Like he was like, oh, he's at the same label as me. We should take him on that tour. And that moment changed his whole career. He was
Yeah.
able to like put out music and do all the things. And I think that that is because he created a community for those fans and didn't ask anything of them at first. He just built a community with them and then utilized the power of that. And I think that there's a lot of different examples there. But I feel like that's, early on with Hudson, we would go, he would play a show in Texas for a couple hundred people, and we'd create an Instagram. You might remember this, but we'd create an Instagram group chat and we
Mhm.
would name it after the city. And when the people would come in, we would have a QR code and someone from the team would have them scan it.
That's
And
right.
you could have like 99 people in there before it gets full. And we would
That's
have
right.
99 people in each one of those cities join it. And then Hudson would send a selfie before the show, like who's ready for the show. And they would all start talking to each other and building community. And those fans are still showing up. I see one or two every time I'm out on the road. They'll be in the front row, like, remember me whenever I was here. And so obviously there's so much more growth with Hudson to happen. But those type of moments, even when you feel like I remember so many artists would tell me early on, they still do, like, why am I going to go live? There might only be 10 people on my live. And it's
Yeah.
like, those 10 people are going to be fans that tell 10 other people. And it's never too small to build those things. And I think that's just the important part of artist development is like you got to start somewhere. And if you
Yeah.
do it, then hopefully it's going to grow. And you got to try those things and you can't be in your own way. You have to be confident enough about what you're doing and how you're doing it to know that that 10 is going to grow.
Yeah, I love those stories and the power of fans. I think is something that, there's examples of, it doesn't matter what era or period of music marketing you're in, the power of the fans always holds this kind of X factor in the ability for an artist to succeed. And it makes me think, at Black Box, one of the kind of foundational questions that we'll ask of an artist is the relationship they want to have with their fans. And some of the examples I might throw out to them is like, are you the big brother? Are you the kind of like God-like figure that is untouchable? Are you the peer? And it's okay wherever you are, but it's important to establish that so there's an expectation. I think the artists that feel like they want to have a relationship with their fans are the ones that thrive the most. There's an artist named Forrest Black, just to give him some shine, and it just makes me think of a time where we were working with him to develop him, and he's someone who very consciously decided he wanted to be there for his fans, and so it starts with I'm going to answer every DM, I'm going to answer every comment. Well, he did this spoken words video, and it had a very kind of heavy message that was meant to give hope. But there was a phone number for those who had, mental health struggles that were, depressed and so forth. And we put the phone number. It was a Google Voice number. But we put the phone number in the video and basically said, "Call me." And the idea was that we were going to keep it open for like a day or two, and he was going to do it as best he could. I don't think he's turned off that phone number. And in talking with him anecdotally here and there about those relationships on the phone, there are people. And this is very heavy, and you have to consciously know if this is what you want to assume as a role with respect to your fans. But the things that he's had to do in talking to people, probably in an unqualified way, but giving them hope with respect to their struggles or being there for people is something that I think has earned him the ability to tour, regardless of if he has a song at radio or not, to make money on merch, to have an engaged social audience. And it's not easy. It's a lot of hard work, but it's such an incredible statement that has nothing to do with, I collaborated with this artist or I, got on this playlist or I went viral on TikTok. And it's, anyways, is a great example. And we've got plenty of them. An artist named Maris of ours that does this thing called the Star Seminar, where she'll basically host a private Google chat with fans and be on video and ask questions and say like, all right, what do you want me to play on tour? Do you like when we do this versus that? What else do you want to see? What do you hate? And it's an incredible sounding board that I think a lot of artists don't put into play enough. Um, One thing that comes up, I think often is like the barrier to success by way of money. And I'm curious to hear real quickly on your side as we are past the hour mark, how much of the ability for an artist to be successful is dependent on the factors of spending money or having access to money.
Well, you know this, Brian, because it's a constant conversation in our building, but I think people will be shocked with the amount of money we do not spend on development artists. I think the easy way is to spend money, right? Do an influencer campaign, but we don't even know if that's going to move the needle if there's no traction, or run lots and lots of ads, which I do think ads are important, but I think you have to have a flame or a spark before you can throw gas on the fire. And if you do it too soon, it doesn't do anything, right? And I think that that is the most important part of this is like, yes, it costs money to record songs. I'm not saying it doesn't. But if you are a true creative and you're in the trenches with people who you built true relationships with, those people will help you. So many times we see young artists who have been writing and coming in and they're like, hey, I have this friend who does really good at building tracks and we're going to make this song through this track and we can save money here. And I put it up on TikTok and I teased it and the fans really liked it this way. So we can do this. And if this works, then we can go do a fully produced version of it. Or so many artists in the pop space use SoundCloud as like an opportunity to get fans engaged and they put their demos and their work tapes up. And I think that is really important. I think money is a factor, and I think that you have to have some in order to be an artist. However, I do think that you don't need as much as you think you do. I was talking about running ads to promote shows. We run $100 ads to promote shows and get fans in the door. Like people
Yeah.
think I'm crazy, but it's very true. Like we don't spend a ton of money. I'm the first one to say, like, do we need this influencer campaign? We don't know if it's going to move the needle there, or do we need to, promote? I'm a huge advocate for not promoting boosting TikToks. I don't think that that really helps the algorithm. I think if you post more, there's a video that I send to all of our artists from Lainey Wilson, and she was talking, I think, at the Country Music Hall of Fame a few months ago about during COVID, she had nothing to lose. So she posted 4 to 5 videos a day on TikTok. One of them showed her personality, one was music, one was just being funny. And like that for a consistent period of time boosted the algorithm enough to get her attention. Like that wasn't boosting post and paying for them. I think that it is just about really showing up and doing the work. Yes, it costs money to record songs, but I think that if you can create enough traction and people see that there's a buzz and a bubbling for you as an artist, they really get on board and support you and give you deals and help you with things because they see that there's something happening and they're betting on you on the long haul of things. And most times, people who charge a lot of money to record and a lot of money to do things in town are because they see it very transactionally. They see
Mhm.
you come into town, you have some money, you're going to record a song that they don't really believe in, they're going to help you do it, and then they're going to move on about it. Like if you build community and traction within people in the industry, I truly believe that they will give you because people who are in the music business love music and they want to help you and they want to see you win. And just like us, when you have an artist with traction, you then have elevated yourself to a new level in the business, right? Same with producers, same with writers, same with creatives and videographers. Like so many people, content is king. So find people
Mhm.
who can help you with that and work the deal that you can with them
Mhm.
as an artist. And I think that it's just not as expensive as people think it is. And you don't have to do all of the ads. I do believe that ads are important. I say this all the time. Like, how many times do you have to see a shaver or some type of ad on Instagram before you actually click it? A lot. You have to put your stuff in front of them a lot. Music is the same way, like 50 times or more. You got to post about that song for people to pay attention and actually go listen to it. But at the same time, I don't think you need to spend the money that people think you need to spend. I think you could record a song do a whole campaign and put out music from anywhere to from 3,500 to $5,000 a song with like a full on campaign and move the needle.
Yeah, I think in the interest of not regurgitating, the same stuff, which I fully agree with. I think one of the things I pull out of that is something that I try to exercise, and that's resourcefulness. So like self-imposed limitations are a great way to train an artist. I've seen the over-coddled artist that hasn't made it yet. And it's very hard to grow with that artist because it's more resources, more money to get things done. And so there's that. The advertising thing. I think advertising is incredibly important, but it's also not a synonym for marketing. It doesn't mean just, pump impressions to be successful. And certainly if you don't have a little fire, don't put fuel on something. If you put fuel on something that's not lit up, it's not going to do anything. And I'm with you in that, like, be resourceful, but making the best music, and I'm seeing it in the comments. You know, investing in music is very important. Investing in a means by which you have a fan relationship, like a direct to fan platform like Lalo. That sounds good. Making content, but doing it in your own way. The
Let me
missteps.
say this before I get roasted, but when you have the money, you should absolutely spend it and take care of the musicians and the people that are doing it because they deserve to get paid.
That's for
However,
sure.
you have to get there at some point, and like you have to cut corners and do what you can while treating people the right way before you get there. I feel
That's
like I've
right.
said it before.
That's
Before
right.
Zebb said to do it cheap.
That's right. So okay, so I got a closing question, and that would be this. What are because you found Hudson, and there's other artists that are coming out of River House that are showing a very similar trajectory. So you're looking at something. What are the conditions you need for success in artist development?
Like for the artist. So what you're
Yeah,
asking.
yeah. What do you need to happen?
I mean, I think you need all of the dreams to connect at one time, right? The stars to align, that's the hardest part. You have to get lucky. I think that's an important part of it. But on top of that, I think you have to have a vision for yourself as the artist, that is an angle that no one else is taking. When you look at artists that have had massive success, Luke Combs, no one was looking or sounding like Luke Combs in the moment. So many people passed on him because he was an everyday guy in a world full of people who were in the bro country phase, right?
Mhm.
I think that that is important. Morgan Wallen made a statement for himself as a person. Everyone knew who he was, whether you liked it or not, and his music really, really connected that way. So many artists have to have an angle. I tell our artists all the time, if someone can't dress up for like you for Halloween, your brand isn't strong enough. So I think there definitely has to be that angle. I think the music has to be great. If the music isn't great, nothing else is going to work. And I think that you have to have the ambition and the drive to work hard every single day. And if you're not working harder as the artist than the rest of your team, it's never going to work.
Yep. Well, I always say that we can never be more than 50% of the equation in any circumstance, label, artist, manager, marketing team. The artist has to be the 50% and beyond. And I think the commonalities that I've seen in more recent successes, and I think this continues, beyond the TikTok era, is the artist that does lean into social media, but also can tour, can have a healthy relationship with their data, clear on what success looks like for them, versus just chasing whatever's in front of them. But ultimately, the music. It makes the job a little bit easier when I'm peddling something that people are saying, "Holy shit, this is cool."
Yeah. Well, and you said all the things I forgot, so thank you for that.
Uh,
And before we wrap, I just wanted to say, there's Tom, so we're wrapping. Just really quick for everyone who's on here, the artists we're working with right now, Hudson Westbrook, Austin Snell, Kenny Whitmire, Matt Lang, Tice Delk, Trinity Lake, Chevis Phillips. If you don't know those artists, go check them out. They're all really incredible. I hope I didn't forget anyone on our roster, and if I did, I apologize. But please go check them out. Check out our website, Riverhouse Artists. Check out Black Box if you're an artist. Um, Really proud of our company and what Brian and Livia have built, and it's been great to work with you and talk with you about it today.
Yeah, same, Zev. I was thinking you might pull out a British accent at some point, but that
Oh,
didn't
I've
happen.
been scared to practice. It's too, talk about confidence. You got to have confidence to try that.
All right, I'll say one last thing. So I went to London not too long ago, and my in-laws came, and my wife was so embarrassed because her mom would accidentally use a British accent in conversation, just kind of, recognizing the situation and talking with locals, and it was clearly an American doing it. So, maybe it'll come out.
No, it's not. Not for me. Maybe my mom.
Well, boys, I hate to cut this off. I looked up the clock. Oh my God, it's 10 after 2. I could let this go on and on and on. The wisdom that you two have just shared with this audience is outstanding. I mean, it's the fundamentals, the basics, the X's and the O's, put in the hard work. Every bit of this is so true. And I really appreciate you sharing your stories, especially love your origin stories, how humble they are in the music industry. You both started on the bottom rung of the ladder, proverbially, and look at you now. And it's no wonder that you are where you are, given the wisdom you just shared. So good on you both. Couldn't be more proud of you two and what you've done here today.
Thanks,
So to
Tom.
the audience, I promised you you'd leave here smarter and more inspired than you arrived. Yep, we did that. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Zeb, safe travels coming back home. Brian, look forward to seeing you the next time you come to Music City.
You got
And
it.
folks, be nice to each other. That's more important today than ever. Just be nice to each other. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Cheers.